I am so glad you're here. You might see Christmas decorations behind me because I was cleaning and I felt it was an appropriate time to decorate, but it's not time for that yet. No, shoot, no, it's not yet. Because we're doing another Wicked dress. Wicked for Good is coming out this week, maybe today, depending on when I get this video done, because I'm very far behind. Now, last year's Wicked dress went interestingly. If you want to know what happened there, check that out. And I said next year, if I do this again, I'll have more of an idea of what to do. Do you ever just lie to yourself all the time? I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I have somewhat of an idea. I tried to bring both the pink and the green in the design last year. However, when I saw Glinda's new bubble dress, I really liked it. And I thought, gosh, she's got so many iconic bubble dress looks. I thought it'd be fun to make my own Glinda bubble dress. Kind of inspired by all of the other ones that already exist, taking elements from each and combining them into one bubble monster. Now, why am I focusing on Glinda instead of Elphaba, or trying to combine both of them together? I do have another side project that is combining pink and green again, but for this I was just feeling really inspired by seeing the new bubble dress, and personally, whenever I have performed a song from Wicked, I usually sing Glinda's part. So there's a personal tie there too, and I'm really excited to work on this. So I did thrift a lot of supplies. I think only 2 of the things that I have are not secondhand. So let's take a look at what we've got. First, I have this dress. My mom actually thrifted and she was like, hey, could you use this for your Wicked outfit? And I was like, probably. It's a really pretty pink. It's very long. And the neckline is already the neckline of basically all of the Ariana Grande Glinda bubble dresses. So I think we might keep it like that, but it does need some adjustments as far as the fit is concerned, but we have a good base to start with. Now the non-thrifted items are this pink tulle. I think I got 3 yards of it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I thought it would just be good to have on hand. And that's kind of the vibe with all of this stuff. I don't have an exact plan for it. I just thought it screamed Glinda or bubble and I grabbed it. The other non-thrifted item is this super cool material. I don't know what it is. It holds its shape, but it's like holographic iridescent. I think there's less than a yard of it because this is all they had. So there's that. And now in her new bubble dress, she has a lot of detail on the bodice. These placemats reminded me of the whatever that is on the bodice that's adding all that detail. So I thought we could have some fun taking these apart and kind of using it as the decoration. I also grabbed this. It's a menace. There's like no good way to hold it without it getting stuck in my hair. They swing all over the place. I don't know how I'm gonna use it yet, but I thought the little bubbles and I'm gonna put it down. It's poked me in the eye like 17 times since I've purchased it. I thought it was cool. And then I grabbed these. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. That was a lot. Okay. These, which are actual bubbles. So I had to grab them. I found this fabric too. It's pink and shimmery. Could be interesting. I also found this ribbon, which is very pretty. Ooh, I'm gonna sneeze again. And then I found these Christmas ornaments, 85 cents. And these kind of reminded me of the little spiky thingies that come off of the wand. Thought they'd be good to have on hand if we do make the wand. If we don't, Christmas ornaments, and it's in my hair. So that's everything we have. Let's go see what we can make. Before I started sewing anything, I needed to figure out what I was going to make. I had several ideas floating around my head, so I decided to put the dress on the form and play around with everything while singing along to the soundtrack, naturally. Look, it's Glinda! I was a theater kid, and now I'm gonna make that your problem. Have another drink of green elixir. It's obscene! This blue curtain I bought, I just couldn't figure out how to use it. I love it all. This purple canopy thing that I've had for years would definitely come in handy somehow. You're so strong, believe that it can. And the pink tulle would for sure go on top of everything. And then it hit me. I'd incorporate the curtain by making petals, calling back to the Broadway bubble dress, and then do a layered tulle inspired by the new bubble dress. The base layer is already pink, which could be considered a callback to the first bubble dress and the original, which are both pink. So I made 2 mock-up petals, and once I liked the way they looked, I cut several petals out of the curtain. And these are just little half-oval shapes that are kept open on the top. Before going any further with the sewing, I repurposed the inflatable hip pads I made for last year's Wicked dress, which had interesting results. To avoid a repeat of last year's placement, I decided to sew a couple loops onto each pad and made a simple belt to string them on. Now, not only are the hip pads adjustable by inflating them more or less, but the placement can also be changed as needed by sliding them along the belt. Once that was done and on the dress form, I continued making the petals, sewing them all right sides together, turning them inside out, and pressing the seams. I also painted the inside of this clear bauble because I knew it would take a long time to dry, but we'll come back to that later. The next day I started the daunting but exciting task of decorating all of the petals. The Broadway ones are heavily decorated, so I wanted to reference that and do some beading along the edges. This took me an entire evening to do them all. And to mix up the mediums a little bit, I also used pearlescent and glitter puffy paints to fill in the space around the beading I did on each petal. I also tested some Mod Podge mixed with glitter onto one, but it didn't end up looking very good, so I decided I'd put that one toward the back. After several hours of work, the petals were all done, so I moved on to the skirt. After testing some pieces of the purple canopy on the skirt, placing them in strips, I decided I liked that more than laying it out as a thin layer over the entire thing, so I cut into the rest of it and pinned everything into place with the pink tulle on top. It all needed to be hand sewn, but I decided to worry about that the next day. My very long hand sewing quest began with the petals. I had already pinned them into place so I would get the distance right, so I just whip stitched each petal together at the top, which had hemmed edges already because it was a curtain, which is always a bonus. Once those were all secured, I had to sew the tulle pieces in place before adding the petals, so I set to work sewing the purple in place first, then the pink tulle on top of that, and then finally the blue petals. After the skirt pieces were sewn to the dress, I played around with the placemat trim, curling it around as a reference to the new bubble dress's incredibly detailed bodice. Once I had a pattern I liked, I used practically every pin I own to hold everything in place and started hand sewing. Now I don't know what delusion I was operating under that I thought I could hand sew all of this in the amount of time I had to do this project, but spoiler alert, I ended up hot gluing everything. It might not be the most permanent solution, but for now I need my sanity intact, and even the hot glue tested that a few times. But after a while of gluing, the front was complete. And then it was time for the back. I debated whether to put a W or Oz spelled out on the back as a fun little detail, and in the end I thought the W looked better, so that option won out.
One eternity later.
And after a few more hours of pinning and gluing, the back was done too. Then I had to decide on the sleeves. But I was too indecisive to choose that night, and I put it all off until the next day. I was originally going to make tall pink sleeves referencing the tall sleeves on the new bubble dress, but I thought the blue off-the-shoulder sleeves like the Broadway dress looked better, and tied in the petals in the skirt. I also decided against the blue in the bodice because the sequin trim I had was a little too greenish blue in hue rather than purple blue. I whipped up a couple of banana shapes using some more of the curtain material, decorated them as I had the petals, with the addition of these crystals I remembered that I had. And moved on to the accessories. I bought this cool holographic material from Michaels, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but it was affordable and it was all they had left, so I nabbed it while I could. I decided to take a wrapping paper tube and glue the holographic material around it, although I messed it up the first time. And then when my quick fix didn't quite fix it, I started over just to make sure I got a clean seam. And this is where our painted bauble comes in. I hot glued it to the end, stuck some Christmas decorations to it by cutting holes into the bauble, and it looked a little sparse, so I also added some of those sparkly frond things that I found. And it looked so much better. To make a tapered end, I used an empty thread cone, hot glued it to the other end, covered it with holographic material and sparkly paper just to hide the joints, and added some pearls to the very end. The only thing left was the bubble tiara. I was given this broken tiara years ago to make something with it, and now the time has come. I had all these silver rings from an old necklace I never wore sitting in my stash that I recently just rediscovered, and they were perfect for this project. I took silver thread and simply wound it around the rings and attached them to the tiara, hot gluing the knots in the back to make sure that the thread would hold. I also had this broken Apple Watch band that I had no use for anymore, but the beads on it were so nice that I held on to it, and the little sparkly bits were perfect to add just little sparkles here and there on the tiara. The very, very last thing left to do was to add more clear baubles to the skirt. I halved each of them and sewed them to the dress directly, scattering them about to try and give the impression that there were bubbles within the skirt. With the bubble baubles in place, everything was done, so it's time for the reveal. It. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little worried going into this because I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to make, and when I did that last year, it didn't go very well. But I'm really happy that it did go well this year. It went really smoothly. There was a lot of back and forth deliberation on where things were going to go. I was originally going to have a double layered skirt using the curtain, but I just didn't like covering up the pink that much with the blue. So I think putting the blue in the petals, which is a callback to the Broadway dress, was the right move in the end, because it's not like the dress is blue now, it's everything. I think if there was one thing I would change, it's putting some more detail onto the skirt. The top half has a lot of detail, the bottom half, not so much. I kind of wish I had gotten some more tulle. The placemat trim that I put on the bodice worked out wonderfully. That's only one of the two mats that I used. It took a while to seam rip all of the stitching out of it, but when I was done, I had a huge coil of trim to use, so that worked out really well. The beading and the puffy paint dots on the petals for the decoration, I love the way they look. I think I could have gone harder on the petals, but I'm glad I didn't because I think it fits the soft, bubbly vibe. So I'm glad I didn't do too much decoration on the petals. I like the light smattering of sparkle. But going back to the skirt, I think it needed some more detail or layers or dimension or something. I like the bubbles, the bubble baubles that I put in the skirt. I've had those since last Christmas. I got them in an end of the season sale. They were so cheap. I bought as many as I could. I wish I had had different sizes, but I grabbed what was there. And I think they do add a little bit of a whimsical effect when you look at the skirt. It just does look like when they catch the light just right, it looks like there are bubbles, which is the point, so that's good. However, I do wish I had gotten more layers. I've never made a ball gown type skirt before, and I know it takes a lot of tulle, but I was really trying to keep the cost down on this, so I only got 3 yards and it gave me 1 layer. If I hadn't had that purple canopy thing in my room, I think it would have been lacking even more, but you know what? It's okay for now. Speaking of cost, I thought it would be fun, since this is almost completely secondhand, to break down the cost of everything. The pink vintage dress that is the base for this was $2.50. The placemats I think were $2. The curtain was also $2. The baubles were a total of $3 last year. The ornaments that I put onto the staff wand thing were $1.50.
They were 85 cents. I don't know why I said $1.50. They were 85 cents.
The blue frond thing that ended up being part of the staff as well was also $1.50. And then the two things that were not thrifted were the tulle, which was $3, and the holographic material, which was $1.50. It was under $2 because I didn't even get a yard of it. And everything else was just stuff I already had on hand. So our Glinda the Good Witch bubble dress interpretation cost $17. I'm only including elements that I actually used in the dress. I did purchase a few other things that I thought I might use for this, but I'm not counting that because I didn't end up using them. So those will go into the stash. And well, speaking of stash, something I really liked about this project was I used a lot of stuff from my stash that has been sitting waiting for a purpose, and I was finally able to give it a purpose. The canopy that used to be in my bedroom, I haven't had up for a while, and it's just been sitting there because it's a lot of material, so I'm glad I was able to use that in the skirt. The staff, making that out of a wrapping paper tube and the plastic cone from some thread. I have held on to those because I had an idea on how to use them, but I never expected to use one in this project. And then when it came to the tiara, I had this necklace that was just a clump of silver rings hanging on a chain. Not exactly my style, but I kept it. I keep a lot of weird jewelry odds and ends, and I always hope that I'll find a purpose for it. And for once, I'm glad I'm a little bit of a pack rat because a lot of that came in handy with the tiara. So yeah, she might be great value brand, Glinda, but we'll put the emphasis on the great because I really like how it turned out. And if you do too, you can let me know by hitting the like button. And if you want to see what I'm doing next and join the channel, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to know when I post, hit the notification bell. YouTube will let you know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!